super excited about our guest today. We have Brandie Michelle Peters on with us, who is the owner of PsyChicks Collective. And I'll let her kind of tell a little bit about what all PsyChicks includes, but I love it because it's a huge spiritual online community. And when I say huge, I mean huge, where you're making these really amazing connections with mediums, with tarot readers, with Reiki practitioners, with all of these phenomenal people. And she's brought this group together. So today we're going to be talking about coming out of the spiritual closet and what that means for us as business owners and spiritual entrepreneurs. Brandie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me. So PsyChicks, it's huge and it's growing. PsyChicks there's really two components of PsyChicks that I should explain. If you are interested in all things psychic, supernatural, metaphysical, witchy, and woo, then you can identify as being a PsyChick. So you're more than welcome to join our community no matter what. If you're just dipping your toe in and it's just a pop cultural thing, you're interested in, things that are metaphysical and you're curious. I call our audience spy curious people. So if you're spiritually curious, that would be you, and you can identify as a PsyChick if you so choose. However, the PsyChicks Collective is our spiritual business collective, and that is, and you are one of them, a collective of people who own spiritual businesses, specifically psychics, mediums, readers, healers, and transformational coaches. We're open if you want to be part of our community and you like what PsyChicks is all about, and you can hang your hat on our brand to have a conversation about whether or not you would fit into our collective. But the beautiful thing about our collective is it's, a variety of different people. So the goal is to match our members, the PsyChicks, with the right fit for them as far as their healer, their guru, I guess I hate that word, but their teacher is a great word, I should say, and their teachers, their healers, their coaches, matching them up so they choose. And it's very self-led, and it's a very organic kind of approach to marketing and connecting businesses with clients. And that's what I've started working on. It's almost 2 years old. We're almost in our second year. I always started working on it with that vision, but now it's evolved into so many other things as we've been very experimental and open in how we collaborate and what we try. We're just still trying things, seeing what works. And you know how that goes. Business is a massive experiment.
Right. And I appreciate that. I think if there's room and flexibility to keep tweaking things, it's only going to get better and better. So I appreciate that about the community. And I love that there are just such a variety. So, and this is, the PsyChicks group on Facebook is like 18,000 members. They're on a couple other platforms, a podcast included. You can hear part one of this conversation over on their podcast. Will you remind me its name?
The Chirpcast, the PsyChicks Chirpcast.
Oh, I love it.
I know, it's lots of fun. And that's kind of my vision with it, is to not make these things so heavy all of the time. I know I'm not the first person to build up a big spiritual niche Facebook group, but if you come into ours, one thing you'll notice that is very different is it is very much first about just women coming together with humor and joy for the mutual interests that we all share. It is not too many business owners all trying to pat their own backs and promote things. And it's not too many people trying to teach and preach and kind of, set the standards of expectations for everyone else. It is very receptive. And there's a lot of open conversation without any bullying or bitching, because we don't allow that. And as it's grown, because the bigger it gets, the bigger the moderation task does become. Our loyal community members have helped to do a lot of the work to set the tone. So it's very different. I have not yet to find personally another community like ours. And I'm not saying that from a place of like ego, come to our group, it's the best. It truly is unique in kind of the vibe that everybody is agreed to in that group.
Well, and I love it because there's so many collective members, that there's so many live events going on all of the time, that you can usually plug into what your interests match with, right? So there's
Mm.
always something going on. And that's really lovely. But I want to have this conversation about, where did your coming out of the closet come out with psychics? So were you always known as a psychic? How did that really, where did that shift happen?
Mm. So, and I'm just getting comfortable with sharing my story, to be honest, because for the first year that I had PsyChicks, I very much disassociated myself from the important role that I played in it. But I will get to that. My spiritual awakening, or my own journey, unfortunately started in my life with a very catalytic event. So when I guess I was 18 years old, I was dating someone, and unfortunately they committed suicide. They ended their own life. I wasn't brought up with any spirituality in my life. I would say my parents, for the most part, were very atheist, not in a cruel way or anything like that, but they very much had a tone of, you get one life, make make the most of it. Um, a truth that was often spoken was, life is hard and then you die. My dad would say it jokingly, which really was not a healthy thing to say to children, but I could have a whole other conversation about the things my dad said that stuck with me. But when that happened, it was the catalyst, and a lot of people have that, something really tragic happening to them. The person I was in a relationship with at that time who did end their life, and I don't speak ill of them, but they weren't a healthy person also in how they were interacting with me. So it was, in some ways, and I've come to see it as an important part of my spiritual journey, because to me it was like God saying, no, we have something better for you. And that I could have seen myself possibly being with that person, and being very limited in that relationship. Uh, I hope that's a tactful way of speaking of someone that I did love, and is now gone, and that's very sad. But it opened up a lot of things in me. And it began this journey of what I would call the curious seeker. On PsyChicks, we have a quiz, and there's 4 personas. And the first step in most people's spiritual awakening is that curious seeker. And I very much was. I wanted to understand the meaning of life. I wanted to be comforted and understand, where do we go after we die? Is there a God taking care of my partner? Like, I did really love him, and I wanted to know that he was in a better place. But I also only had an understanding of religion from what I'd picked up from like media and popular culture. So I wasn't raised with it. And I did know that I thought that people who committed suicide went immediately to hell, that there was no forgiveness to that. Because at the time I had a very, first limited, but also very just stale kind of view of all things relating to spirituality, specifically the afterlife. So if there was no God, then he was gone. And if there is a God, then it's not a kind God. So he's potentially in hell. And that just disrupted me. And I went on the journey. So I started to, I looked up stuff about psychics. That was the first thing I did, psychics and mediums, because I wanted to talk to someone to see if I could talk to him. That's something a lot of people do in grief that is not talked about enough. I went down the internet rabbit hole on my laptop looking for maybe somebody who could liaison with him. Some of the things he had said in his last communications to me just had caused me absolute trauma. I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder because of it. But I wanted to talk to him and straighten that out. So I was looking for mediums, but I also went to a psychiatrist, because my family, it did become apparent to them that I wasn't doing well through this. So I did end up going the conventional like medical route to try to deal with myself at that time. And I also started going to a Christian church with my friend Natalie, and I'm so grateful for her taking me there, because that was the first time I'd ever experienced spiritual community, and I really needed it at the time. So that was the beginning. That was the the absolute start of it all. And it was heavy and it was hard, and it went on for, oh, and I would say almost 10 years, really. Like, uh, I think that, so that was 2007, 2008. I don't think I had a good handle on things for at least a decade. It was just a lot of seeking. My interest grew, and what I was aware of grew, but I didn't really make any kind of like decisions for myself about what my spiritual beliefs were, or start to talk openly about all this stuff now I've been exploring, until about 2016. And that came about because my husband and I were having difficulties in our relationship. Uh, we're still together. We're really happy now, but we were a young couple with a son, just struggling to sort things out. And one of the things, similar to the story you shared, was that I didn't feel like I could be my true self with him. And I finally had to come out with like, I had to figure out, before I could define like who I wanted to be, I had to figure that out so I could kind of reveal myself to
Yes.
everyone.
Right.
uh,
Yeah. I mean, and like we said on our previous show, with the Psych Chicks podcast, is that, we have to do this. We have to recognize who we are first, right? We have to heal enough to feel comfortable with the people closest to us. And so your spouses typically should be the first person, right? They're supposed to be, your best friend, the person that you feel safe with, to be 100% yourself. And so when we're on these, spiritual journeys and we're having these self discoveries, tell us a little bit about what that was like for you to just open up to someone you weren't sure, even though he was your husband, how they were going to receive this information.
well, without getting into our whole love story, his family is Christian, and they, because he and I, we ended up getting pregnant very early in our relationship. And my own family was not that keen on that, even though I was an adult. I was in my 20s. I wasn't like a teenage mother or anything, but my parents weren't very receptive to that. I have no idea, being that they weren't religious in any way, why they had such a problem with two people out of wedlock having a child. But my parents were kind of out of the picture, so he and I ended up leaning on his family very heavily. And because they were religious, I felt a lot of myself. And it was even things like, and I think a lot of women can relate, it was things like my tattoos. Like, if I hadn't married my husband, I'd have a whole sleeve of tattoos. But his family, his was like, not that into it. So like, I had a nose ring at the time, which I ended up taking out. And it was never, and I want to be clear in case they do listen, or just because I don't want to put any like bad juju out there. Until I met his parents, I had never known what it was like to be like loved just unconditionally by a parent. His mother is very much the mother that I needed, and I'm so grateful. But there were rules and kind of this energy or this vibe about all the people that all came into my immediate life when I met him, that there was a way of being. And because of my preconditioning, I felt like, okay, well, I can just adapt to that. It's not so bad. I can just adapt to that. We'll just wear long sleeves. They don't see the tattoos on my arm. We'll just be, extra polite and not, talk about the things we're interested in. The music I loved, which I love punk music. Okay. I'm a full-blown riot girl. Like, I love punk. I love feminism. I love female empowerment. I'm really into like popular culture, meme culture, internet culture. Like, my personality, it wasn't like that they wouldn't have accepted me, because evidence has now shown like I'm still me. I'm more me than I've ever been, and I'm still loved by them. But because I was in survival mode, and I was just like, okay, let's just, close it all down and just be who they want us to be and mind our P's and Q's, and we're going to be okay. But when I decided that I wanted to, more deeply explore, specifically realizing that I am a psychic and an empath, when I wanted to start to integrate some of the things that I was practicing in my life, which included like meditation, the use of psychedelics to enhance my spiritual, connection to my higher power, the use of that. Like a lot of people like, frown upon that, but I do use like weed gummies. I have done acid, so like
And the cacao
mushrooms.
experiences.
Oh yeah, I could talk now. I'm into cacao, but if I'm being honest, I was doing those things and I had nowhere in my life where I could talk about the realizations. Like when I say I did acid, I had a guided journey with acid. I wasn't just like out, having a crazy time. I did a lot of like soul work through an experience, and that to me, like the Brandie I was before and the Brandie I was after that was like a complete rebirth of self. But I had no voice to even share how massively I was changing, because you kind of enter into these contracts with people in your life of this is who I'm going to be and this is who you're going to be. And, even if
Right.
you're getting along, and I was like, this is going to massively disrupt those contracts. Because for instance, like my mother-in-law, I love her to death because she's the mother I never had, but I knew that this was going to be like a thing to come out with. And like
Right. Over the top.
my husband, his immediate reaction, this is why we were in a very like rocky spot, was like, let's reel it in. Whatever this is, reel it in, because he also had a lot of fear of what happens when his wife is just out there letting her freak flag fly. I had a social media presence at that time because of my business and the business I continue to run, which is my marketing agency. So I was very already public on social media, more so than the most people. Already had some audience and a following when this was happening, and I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to share it. I wanted to speak my truth. And the immediate people in my life, like there was this compressive energy of like, no, don't. What will people think? Preserve yourself. Preserve your dignity. And hey, it leaks out one way or another. Okay.
Right. Yes. Oh, totally.
Anytime we're compressed, it's gonna come out another way. And people, I think at that time, people without the full story, the full context, definitely thought I was losing it. I definitely think that the more conservative, buttoned up people in my life were possibly witnessing small things coming out, what I would say on social media or what I was all of a sudden into. And I knew that, like, without anybody having to tell me also, I'm empathic. So they didn't have to strictly say anything, that people who did not understand that I was having a mental health break, which is very common, that's what people perceive somebody's spiritual outcoming as. If you if you know what I'm talking about, you're nodding. So.
Yeah. I'm so like, I have a similar story to this.
Yeah. So I was running a business, but the business that I had at the time wasn't necessarily spiritual in nature. I did have clients who saw that in me. I have always been a magnet for fellow weirdos. I feel like takes one to know one. And so the clientele that I was working with, some of my long-term clients are mediums, they are transformational coaches, and people working in like, intangible
Yeah.
areas.
The
But
spiritual
I
industry.
but I also marketed, your local small town plumbing business. So my business was never specific to that. It was just who I was, tended to bring in like-minded people, especially around that time. And I won't lie, like there was a point where most of my clients were some form of a new age practitioner.
Mhm.
And yet the brand I was putting out there was still playing it very safe, which is now still in an evolution of like how I want to run the marketing side of my life. I am still a marketing consultant and strategist. And, it's interesting because that brand, if you go to my BP Creative Marketing website, is very safe. And PsyChicks is very, you'll get it, you'll see it
Yeah.
and you'll get it. Like it's there. So it was a very intentional, still to this day, it's still an integration process. And we can talk a little bit about how I'm integrating, but yeah, I was trying to keep my world separate, as even now still continues to be a challenge, because I don't want to lose any professional opportunities. None of us do. But let's be honest, you do limit yourself the more out there you are, especially if you're not following the mainstream narrative about anything. Let's be honest, in this day and age, you have to be very careful because it can affect yourself. So you have something to say about this, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, I think this goes along with everyone. Like a lot of spiritual entrepreneurs, they walk this line of like, how much do I share about myself, and how much do I put myself out there, and who's going to judge me, and why do I care about people judging me, and what is that going to look like, and how's it going to affect my everyday life? And so we have these ongoing string of questions as someone who's starting out, going, okay, well, I have the certifications, or I have this natural gift, and I want to put myself out into the world, and I want to be who I am. But how is the world going to react to that? Are we living in a space that's safe to receive me? And for the most part, I would say for many of us, it's not super, you're going to get some type of feedback that's not going to be positive in some way, whether that's some random person online you don't know, or your mother-in-law. Like, right? There's going to
Absolutely.
be a variety. If someone's going to be like, what are you doing and why are you doing it? And you're not supposed to do that. And you're going to hell. Like, there's going to be that mixed in there somewhere. Right. Like, and this comes back to like, okay, well, what part of our healing journey, our personal healing journey, needs to still be healed, so that when we get this backlash, that we can just brush it off and go, this is who I am. And either you love me or hate me, or you love me and accept me, or you leave me alone.
Mm.
So like I really find, like, for myself, like for my journey, I really had to hit a rock bottom. Like spirit was nudging me for years. I had the same kind of like, here's a decade where you're getting these intuitive hits, and you know what your next step is, and you're going, no, I can't do that. No, I can't do that. No, I can't do that. And for me personally, it was a lot of money mindset. Like if I act as a spiritual entrepreneur, I will be destitute. I will not have any clients. I will lose everything that I've built up. I won't have the money to live stable. Like I was in survival mode.
Mhm.
And in that pressure of that belief that I couldn't be myself, I couldn't like put myself out there to do sessions for others, to teach classes, to be fully who I am, I ended up making myself severely sick. So
Mhm.
not I got diagnosed with an autoimmune. My first husband was still harassing me and calling the police all the time, and custody battles flying everywhere. And I had to have this like rock bottom moment of going, I have to give up custody. I need to get on psych meds because I'm suicidal. I'm either going to hurt myself or someone else at this point. I need to come to the real truth of the matter. And what came out of that was, I only should be doing Reiki or meditation. If it's not Reiki or meditative related, I shouldn't be doing it right now.
Mm.
And I had to kind of like wipe the slate clean, going, all right, we're going to give up everything. We're completely surrender and see what happens. I'm going to live my life in this truth and this truth alone. And I don't recommend that. So if you're listening going, oh my God, Christine, no, you don't have to hit the rock bottom. I'm trying to forewarn you.
Well, let me interject because mine has not been as catastrophic, because luckily for me, I built my business, my marketing business up first, and the seed of having a spiritual business, it wasn't even really there yet because there was other things that needed to happen. But fast forward right now, I'm still straddling. I'm fully out with it with PsyChicks, and it's only helping me because people see, oh, look what she built for her. And I want to work with her as a marketing professional. And the types of clients that I have in my marketing business, although they've asked about it, they sometimes, those who don't fully understand, are like, oh, are you using your psychic powers right now and stuff, they tease, but I feel completely still like loved and accepted because I have set a boundary that does not allow anything but. No one, whether it be in my marketing business or in PsyChicks, who would put anything on me but love and positivity is welcome in my space. And that's like a whole thing around kind of knowing exactly how you want to feel in every experience and being able to control that literally by having really strong boundaries.
Well,
But
and that boundaries, I want to just pause on that because I really want our listeners to hone in on this, that it has to come from us. Our boundary settings has to come from the individual of what your experience is. So if you're Facebook friends with thousands of people and half of them don't like what you do, it is your choice to, I'm going to set a boundary and clean up my Facebook feed, right?
mhm,
Like,
yeah,
and that's a form of self-love. That's a radical form of self-love, to go, these people who knock me down are not no longer welcome to do so.
yeah. I have an affirmation, and it is, I do not owe anything to anyone. And why am I putting their comfort with me ahead of my own happiness? I examine that a lot to make decisions to uphold those boundaries. But besides that point, I think what a lot of people perhaps, they give people more power in their life than they really need to. Like,
Yes.
you might be sitting there wondering, well, how does your mother-in-law handle it? How does she handle side chicks? We don't talk about it because it's not like, I will mention like, oh yeah, like my side chicks business is doing really well, and she'll say, oh, that's great to hear. But she doesn't ask me because it's a conversation that is going to create a ripple effect in our relationship. She can go to the website. She knows what it's all about. She knows what I'm all about. But we talk about other things. We talk about the kids. We are respectful, and there's still a lot of love. I know it's not her most favorite thing in the world that I do, but I have been eccentric on the internet long enough that people in my life have come to see that's Brandie being Brandie, and they choose either to remove themselves because I'm not, receptive to their negativity about it. I didn't stop, when I started my business, even with my marketing business, because I was very out there and made myself very visible on social media in order to build my marketing business. So there was already people who didn't accept me from that. But the thing I've learned through that process is people either opt in or opt out on you. Just like on your email list, people opt in or opt out on you as an individual, and you're not in control of that. So it's not a place to put too much of your attention. And you can coexist with people who can, if you have to, who love and care for you, even if they don't agree with what you're doing, or they have another worldview specifically about spirituality, as long as you can have respect for that.
Yes.
Um, because just like I wouldn't appreciate it if my father or my mother-in-law came to me and started to preach their beliefs to try to alter my behavior, it would be the exact same reaction for me to try to get them interested into things that I'm interested in. And if it came from it in a as an attack. And it always takes some self-metering. We talked about ego in the episode we did for my podcast. It's a metering again of that ego to make sure, why is it so important that they understand you? That's a big question to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Not
Yeah.
everybody needs to understand you. Why is it
And
so important that the stranger down the street understands? Why do you give so much power away, right? And so that's how I've navigated it.
and here's the positive side of when you come out of the spiritual closet. One, you might be happily surprised. There might be people in your life that you thought were going to be a downer on what you're doing and come out as your cheerleader. And I love hearing those stories. And two, look at the opportunity of inspiration you're providing for everyone else to also
Mhm.
come out of their spiritual closets and being authentically true to themselves and who they are. And so I constantly hope to be a possibility portal for others, meaning I hope that I am showing others that listen to this program, that follow me on Reiki Cafe, that you can be a bright light in the world and you can help start shifting and making other people's have a positive effect, whatever that looks like. And so if we're just all living our magnificent truth and really embodying all that we were created to be and really embodying that higher self and that connection with divine source, like that would be such a much better place to live in. And so I get
Mhm.
to just do my part and like inspire others to do their part. And if we are all just doing that, it's going to have a collective ripple effect.
Yeah. Intuition is a huge part of that, in my opinion, because it's the first foundation to unlocking any spiritual gifts, if that's the journey you're going on, is to love and trust yourself.
Yes.
Now, I had mentioned that although it was an absolute catalytic, life-altering tragedy that set me on my path, the perspective I now have, as unfortunate as this might be to say out loud, is I'm glad that that happened when and how it did, because it made me who I am, and it sent me on my path, on my way to what spirit has been calling me towards. And my conviction to that truth, that I wasn't put on this earth just to be somebody's marketing strategist. That became very apparent to me as I was working with other spiritual entrepreneurs and building their businesses and their dreams behind the scenes. And we're not talking small businesses. I was behind the scenes on book launches, course launches, 7-figure e-commerce businesses, all in the spiritual niche. And I was working literally behind the scenes. So running the campaigns, doing high level work in other people's businesses. And at some point I was like, well, why aren't I doing this for myself? What are the reasons? Like, I now have the skill sets. I have kind of a foot in the door. I have the context, the connections. I have the talent, because now I've done it for other people, that I don't even need to prove it to myself that it's possible. I've been building, large communities for other people, large businesses for other people. They come to me for advice on what to do to build their spiritual business, and yet I'm not doing it. Why? And a big definer at that point, this was pre-PsyChicks, the big thing was, because you're scared, you still have a lot of shame around, your truth. And I wasn't living authentically. I was living authentically in the sense that, like, yes, I'm very free to be me now with my family and stuff. I carved that freedom, but I wasn't like also doing the things I truly wanted to be doing. I was running a marketing agency that I was like I still enjoy that work, but it was clear to me that wasn't my soul's calling. I knew that I was meant to be doing something more along the lines in female empowerment, and with a spiritual flavor. My soul and my gift really is how I bring people together, and I create a space where people are able to be themselves. And that is what I wanted to do, and that is what I am now doing. But I felt the urge, the tickle, it was being told to me on repeat every day, and I wasn't doing anything about it because I was, just like you talked about the money mindset. Well, I can make hundreds of thousands of dollars as a marketing strategist doing this for other people, or I can be in the risky position of, going back to being a beginner at something, building something brand new of my own. Again, I straddled, so I'm still doing both. One funds the other. It's beautiful. um but honestly, like, I knew for like a year I lived in kind of this place of like, my heart's not here, it's not in it, it's over here on this dream that hasn't even been acted upon yet. And that's when I knew that I was at a place where I could do it. Because back when I was in my healing space, when I was still needing to repair myself and become comfortable with Brandie 2.0, I couldn't have started that business because it would have just been a mess of all of my crap splattered out into the world. Because I wasn't in a place yet to hold space for other people, because I needed so much space held for me. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I think this is what, a good takeaway from this conversation is, if you want a spiritual business, if you're ready to come out of the spiritual closet, that self healing work is mandatory. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think another point that somebody who's thinking of having a business in the, helping, healing, spiritual space, and they're gathering the skill sets, it doesn't have to be like, a 0 to 100 leap. Um,
Totally.
so many people try to make money, for instance, in this space before they themselves are really comfortable receiving that money, because money mindset, let's do another conversation about money mindset. But there's nothing wrong with, for instance, starting to do it on the side and charging for it, and increasing your capacity to receive and help others while you're also honing your talents. You're gathering knowledge about yourself through actually having the opportunity to work in a commerce exchange. But it doesn't have to be, and I'm quitting my day job and going online as a psychic medium because I feel like I want to. It's a rough, it's it's not for everybody. It's presented sometimes that way on the Instagram ads: start your spiritual business, become an internet psychic, or become a coach of some sort, become a healer, use your gifts. It's not the easy path to wealth. It's an initiation. It's a whole other skill set that needs to come into play. But my advice to everyone is like, that doesn't mean we can always get somebody like a little bit further. We can help others while helping ourselves, and we don't always have to be like so dramatic about our, you know,
Yes.
our leap
Yes.
into business.
Yeah, I think people don't often realize, like when I first started my business, my goal was to cover the rent for the space and cover childcare. You know, like people just automatically assume like I must have just started and voila, 10K months. And it's like, no, 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 that took years to build up. And I didn't know what I was doing. Like Reiki practitioners aren't given a business manual. We're not
Mhm.
taught how to do any of these things. So I've spent probably a good, $5,000, $10,000 just on business education to get me to where I am today. And so I think there's absolutely a space for doing your sessions in the evenings or on the pick one day a week, or start out somewhere, but don't jump in full time. I
Mm.
mean, don't go from quitting your day job to doing this full time. And I will say that again and again, because it's not going to give you the financial stability that you're hoping for. And we want to create the audience and the sessions and the clientele and slowly build that up. And I'm definitely one who believes in slow and steady growth. I don't want to burn out in 1 year. I don't want to get
Mm.
exhausted. I want to have this business for the next 20 plus years. And therefore, we don't have to throw in thousands of dollars to make this happen at the very first month that you do this. Like, just take an
Yeah.
evening, just take an afternoon, just take one weekend and find a space that you can do it and put yourself out there. Do the events, do the expos, do the fairs, do something where you're getting your name out there, but it doesn't have to be 100% you're all in. What do you have to say to that, Brandie?
Well, I have been given the gift of being behind the scenes on many different types of profitable businesses. And that has given me a unique perspective on how the spiritual business niche behaves. And bless those who take up, that journey. But the truth is, most businesses where you are the product that you are selling require a long time to build trust with your clientele. It I often, when I coach people through this, my favorite example is like, if you set up shop today and then you do traditional advertising, it wouldn't matter what you're selling. It takes time for people to, first of all, understand what you do as a business owner, unless you are something like doctor, dentist, lawyer, in a similar regards, real estate agent, where they choose the personality of the individual. They're similar businesses in the sense that people are buying into you, but they are very different in the sense that you are talking about people's spiritual health and is a form of holistic counseling or consulting or development, that means it's a very personal choice for the customer. They have to have a lot of trust. We are not talking about easy stuff in this conversation. When I was at my, in my catalyst, my spiritual awakening, the wrong person without the right intentions getting their claws on me, I was incredibly vulnerable. Talking about when I was, in my seeking phase. So there's this importance, first of all, that before we appoint ourselves into a role in someone else's life because we think we can make money, that we first have, done the training, the work, the mentorship, had the experience to do so in a way that's in the best interest of them. But from a marketing standpoint, everyone is intuitive to some extent. And there's something about embodiment, and we know who the good guys are and who the bad guys are, and who just wants our $100 an hour and truly wants to help us. And there's a period of time where all of that is revealed to us if we let people show themselves. And what I am saying in those many words is just, you need to be patient. If you are meant to be doing that work, it will happen very organically. People will start coming to you. People will start asking for your help. If you come out and you say, hey, I do this, and you start inviting them in, those who see that in you, it will happen at the rate and pace, like let divine events unfold. It's not something to go spend your life savings on. Thinking somebody with, a great funnel and a great, ad strategy can make that business for you overnight. I've been in the shoes of people who think that I have the gifts to do that. I don't. And also in yourself, it's like, what if I did give you this massive platform and opportunity? Are you really truly in a place to receive it? Or are you just thinking, well, I could use some extra money, like, where are you?
Yeah.
Am I making a lot of sense?
Yeah. I mean, there's this point in our, like, what's motivating us for being a spiritual entrepreneur. We have to get really clear on that. Like, is it because we want to be a stay-at-home mom and this would be an extra way to make some income? And if that's really the reason, like, well, you could join an MLM or whatever else, right? Like, like
Yeah.
why are we called to be a spiritual entrepreneur?
Ooh, I love that you bring up the MLM conversation for a lot of other reasons, because I do feel like the spiritual entrepreneur, the healer, is the new persona, the new evolution of the MLM, the failed MLM. Oh, well, I'll just go be an internet psychic. I'll just go get some Reiki certification and start offering that to my friends and family instead, which I am not in the business of actually judging people how they make their income. Like, there is room for every type of person in this world to do as they will. But I always think about alignment, integrity, and like who do you want to be in this world? And yeah, you can get so far, like, just with a modality or a skill set. That is absolutely true. If there is a demand for it and you have it, there's no reason, for instance, if you have, some certifications in Reiki, why you can't charge for those and set up shop and make some money doing that. But what we have to remember is, like, again, that intention driving those actions are directly what is affecting the manifestation of the events that are going to occur. So you
Yes.
you very much will, in every sense of the word, get what you deserve in almost every scenario in life. So that is why, if you do appoint yourself to come into a spiritual practice, to set up shop in that realm, you better be, keeping an eye on all things within that. And that's, we're seeing this dismantling. There's a lot of people who rise to the top, but they have their garbage. Everything is always eventually revealed. So that is the truth, is everything does show itself in time. So manage your intentions and you'll be okay. And some people are sitting there going, I'm good. Like, my intentions are good. I know I'm in the right spot. And there might be some people going, oh, I've never thought of it like that. Like, maybe I am not in alignment in the way that I could potentially be.
Well, and I think that people who are out of alignment, oftentimes it's because there's something else that they're meant to be doing. And this, for
Mm.
whatever reason, looks like their easier way. Uh, right. And so it's like,
Yeah.
and when there's that thought, like, oh, I got my Reiki level 1 so I could start doing this, when right there I get really I have opinions about that. Um, it's it's this, what are we missing? What is actually supposed to become unfolding for that person to bring them on their divine inspired path? Where is the resistance to that path? What is it revealing, so that we can self-reflect and go, oh, I still have healing work there,
Mm.
because I see it so often that the people who, just throw themselves into a spiritual business fairly quickly, they might not have those intentions. And then you have others that they know, like they know that this is what they're meant to be doing, and it just all kind of pulls together and unfolds for them so easily and beautifully. And it's like, wow, how the hell did you do that? That was how did you I mean, I have a student who literally opened her business in January, and by February she had full clientele. And I'm like, it's just like, hello, you're in alignment, your clients are going to show up for that, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think this is a great way to wrap up because,
Yes.
I'm not perfect either. I do have to share that for the first year building PsyChicks, I was like, this is something I want to exist in the world. And so at the time, because my marketing agency was doing very well, I had money to invest to build it. And I share this because I don't want to give people unrealistic expectations of how something, if you go take a look at it, like I have built, can pop up overnight and seem like, all of a sudden this massive success. And there are many people who come to me going, what is your secret? Well, the secret is I was given the opportunity to work on other people's businesses in this similar niche for many years, and also learn from mentors and people with this similar type of business model for many years. And that was a gift given to me because I ran a marketing agency. But that said, when it comes to living in alignment, there was something misaligned with PsyChicks from the very beginning, which was every role inside of it, I just threw money at. So the onboarding process with the new collective members, the moderation of the group, the growth of the group, all was at first, well, I was like, I don't have me to invest. I'm buried under client work, but I have money to invest. So we'll just try to solve for me. And the fact is, it's my baby. The mascot Annie is me in cartoon form. The vision was very much me, but it limped along and grew to some rate without me being super hyper involved in it for at least the first 8 months. We started up the PsyChicks Collective, and it was always meant to, in some form, service business owners, but we allowed people to sign up on the website for $40, be listed on the website. We would take a 50% cut on all of their bookings, and we ran ads. And that's how it existed. And it became somewhat successful for the first 8 months, just as a very mechanical machine. But then as more people started to come into it, I started to even feel bad about that because, one, I'm not sharing it publicly on any of my other platforms. So members of the collective are like, hey, Brandie, like, you've got an audience, you've got people who follow you, why don't you talk about us? So these business owners who were paying me money monthly to be on my website were like, why don't you ever talk about PsyChicks? And that was the first thing that told me I was out of alignment. The other thing that kept happening was we would be like, people would be unclear about what they were coming into. We were just allowing basically a free for all, and then just putting out fires constantly in the moderation. There was no like one person to come in as a leader and be like, no, this is our vibe, this is what we're about. And we're building, you can build a business without a Facebook group, but we're building a business with a Facebook group, but nobody's running the show. So it's a mess. And it's like, well, hire more moderators, pay people to fix it. Can't be done. Things, and this is actually when you joined, this is kind of when I started to get my shit together, but you've probably really seen me take kind of more charge, because you joined and I was pregnant, and I was like, things are going to change, because I knew things were going to have to change. But you joined, and we've had a few OGs. We've even had old people come back when they've seen me get more invested in it. But I allowed myself to show up for that. But the biggest thing that I did in service of that business was share it and come out with it to my friends, my family, the social media following I had built for my marketing agency, to realize, and that feedback didn't feel good, to have one of our longest term, and she's one of my dearest friends, and she's Mariposa, like, has been with me since the day I set up shop with PsyChicks, but she sent me an email, and that email said, Brandie, like, you've got this amazing opportunity that most people would die to have, and you don't leverage it, and you're not, you know, not, she wasn't so critical to say I wasn't doing things correctly, but she did say it didn't feel right, and I needed to check on myself. And I came out within a couple of months. I didn't that day react. In fact, my reaction originally was, fuck her. I'm working so hard. Why can't she see it? Tears in my eyes. My reaction to that feedback. But as I allowed that to not react to it immediately and allowed it to integrate, I was like, yeah, like, this is supposed to be my passion and my dream. I gotta show up for it. I don't care if I'm not making any money. I'm gonna take a pay cut because I'm spending less time on my marketing agency, which makes me a lot more. I am going to be very vulnerable with my audience and let them actually get to know me, so they know that this is not a free for all, that there is somebody who is, you know, bleeding for this thing, and that there is, you know, somebody helming the ship. I am going to take, you know, full responsibility for the thing I've been working on. And everything has shifted energetically in that community and in that business and in me in that coming out. But we talked about the shaking up the people around me. Like, it's no longer a secret. It's out there. It's not this, you know, thing I'm doing secretly on the side. It's out there. I'm on the website announcing myself as a psychic intuitive myself, telling my story about why I made it. And everything's changed. A lot of things in my life have changed since putting it forward, but I don't wake up feeling, I knew, just, I wasn't doing things in alignment. I wasn't authentic, and it was showing, and it was squirting out the sides everywhere. So if that's any testimony to, you know, where you can come from and where you can grow into, anybody who goes into that group knows now that, like, I love that thing to death. And I love PsyChicks. If you look at the business, to death, it is clear, it is there, that there is somebody who is, like, raising that baby.
Yes. And I think that also goes to show, like, no matter where you're at and what you've built, there's more room to grow and more opportunities to learn and more opportunities for self-reflection. And when you do the work and you step into where your joy is coming from, because that's what I've seen. Before, it was this stressed out Brandie. And now it's like, oh, I'm doing this because I enjoy it. I'm doing the card reading because I enjoy it. I'm making this community and connecting people and networking because I enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, that's the funniest. I mean, this is absolutely true. I'll put my hand up. I'm like putting these people on my platform saying, go do live streams and do readings, pull cards, go, you know, to get clients from this community, go, like, telling these business owners who really needed leadership and support from somebody who has experience in business to just run and play and figure it out on a massive platform. Because when this was happening, it was already past 10,000 in membership. And then I was like, the reason nobody's doing is because nobody is showing. So even though I am not, like, the most brilliant tarot card reader in the world, and my psychic gifts, I am still nurturing them. I go on and I do my own readings now. I make myself available to read for people, and I share that I'm creating resources for the collective while I'm doing that to make it easier for them. But that's one way that I'm like, how can I ask you to do something that I'm not even willing to do myself? I'm asking you guys to go and post on your social media, hey, look what I do. And I was like, no, I would never do that. Like, so I was completely misaligned with that approach, because it's like, it is, if we do it together, I mean, from a collective standpoint, which is the vision of the business, if we are all standing together, there will be embarrassment. There will be a little bit of, energy created because people are coming out in a very bold way publicly where other people can see them. But if you are standing up amongst many other women doing the same thing, then you are supported, and those are the community then to have to lean on, who understand that experience, not just, you all by yourself. You're going to run away and hide as soon as like 5 people with opinions, show up. And that's the beauty of being part of a collective.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about that for your business, so we all do it together now. We are all like arm in arm, feeling a little silly sometimes out there, fully PsyChicks Collective.
Yes. And I love what it's becoming. Like, not only do the collective members get some really amazing business resources to show them step by step of how they can build those client relationships, do the lives, all of the things, which so many people have really no idea how to do it, right? So this is a really good space to come explore and learn and grow as a spiritual entrepreneur. So thank you so much for the collective and just the space that you're holding, because I do really have a beautiful vision of what it's becoming.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on your podcast today to share that, and thank you for being on mine. I appreciate you. You've been such a great blessing in my life to know you. So thank you.
Thank you, Brandie. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I'm sure it will inspire many of our listeners out there. And I'm sure we'll have other future collaborations in the future.
Awesome. Take care.
Beautiful. Thank you.